Alright, good day everybody. So, I kind of did this video once and didn't like how it turned out, so I'm kind of redoing it again. So hopefully you can follow, because it might jump all over the place. But by the title you should know what the video is about, and it's the injector upgrade, the 4-hole injector upgrade that people like to do on these, because the factory ones come with a single hole. And basically what people do this for is for throttle response and better MPG. Basically doing this mod is to try and get the atomization of the fuel better than the single hole. With 4-hole you get better atomization, much finer spray, so it doesn't have to quote unquote put as much fuel in when it's more atomized. So, if I remember correctly, all Jeeps need a high impedance injector. If that's not right, you'll see a pop-up. Which I believe when high impedance is, I think 12 to 16 ohms if you ohm the injector out. I honestly did not ohm these out because I didn't bother. They work. But now we're going to jump to when I was just comparing some of the injectors, the old injectors, so hard cut. And I don't know if you can see this. Here's some example of injectors. Alright, this one is the stock injector off my Jeep. That is an 01. As you can see, it's a single hole. This injector is off of my Ford Ranger 4.0. 4-hole, and these are the new ones for the Jeep 4-liter for my model 4-hole. Realistically, when you do this upgrade, you just want to change one variable, and that is the quality of atomization of fuel. You don't want to change the flow rate at all, because if you do, in closed loop the computer will compensate, but when you're in wide open throttle, the computer doesn't even pay attention to the O2 sensors, so you'll be running richer than you should. And the only way, if you put bigger than the same size injectors in, the only way to correct that is to get a dyno tune or somehow tune it to lean out the mixture, because you have bigger size injectors to what the old ones were. So here are some examples. Here's the one that is pretty much destroyed when I took it out. I can nard everything crap out of it. So this is a EV1, or not, no, scratch that. This is EV6 body type injector with a US car connector on it. This is an EV6 injector with a Jetronics connector on it. And then this is an, again, EV6 injector with a US car connector on it. So it's Jetronic connector, US car connector. All these injectors are EV6. The other injector type is EV1, which are a two-piece fat body design. But for the most part, my model came with EV6s and US car connectors. I'm going to keep it that way. Now, the ones that I grabbed, I got a set of 6 of them off eBay for like $60. And there's the number right there. Oh, 280, 155, 784. And in a moment I'll go over all the specifications that you can find on the internet, put all the links in the description for all the stuff I found, and sort of go over the math and everything for it. But for most part, those are the two types of injectors. Okay, so we're going to go over some information that a lot of videos that do this do not go over with you. Okay, to start off with, You want to put the right size injector in so you don't have one of two things happening to your engine. One, you put an injector in that's too big compared to what was in there, and the computer doesn't know that. So what will happen is you will overfuel the cylinders, which in turn will make you use more fuel than you should, which means it will turn into even more of a gas guzzler. Be using it faster than you can put in the tank, but also when it puts too much fuel in, it can choke on that fuel, wash down the cylinders, and if you put a lot in, it can go past the rings into the oil, contaminate the oil, and then you have oil pressure problems due to wrong lubrication in the crankcase. This is an extreme measure, and this is why you want to put the right injectors in, because it can also go to the other end of the spectrum, where if you put not enough size injector in, it will happen to go lean. Now, going lean, you will have it use not as much fuel, but the problem is you're probably going to hear sort of a knocking noise. This is called fuel knock, or yeah, mostly fuel knock, because when the piston's coming up, there's not enough fuel in there, so hot spots are created on the piston and ignite the fuel instead of the spark plug, which is called knocking. Now, depending on when the computer is set up, if it's set up with a knock sensor, the computer can try and compensate, but again, if you don't have enough fuel in there, the engine's going to run like poop if the engine's trying to compensate for that knock because you have the wrong size injectors in there. As well as when you're running on a lean mixture, the engine runs extra hot. You also run the risk of blowing holes in the pistons due to lack of fuel, and it wears out your engine prematurely. Same as the rich mixture. You'll wear out your engine prematurely. So that's two like extreme ends of which way this can go, and that's why you need to put in the right size injector so you won't have any headaches of chasing your tail around due to performance problems, fuel economy problems, and engine reliability problems. So what's good about this page right here is this company, Craig Lean Engine, that makes stroker kits, and even specifically for 4 liters, gives you a ton of information about the power output of each 4-liter engine that was created for every XJ, Wrangler, and Grand Cherokee. They even give you the whole thing. Redline, max horsepower, torque. It's just great. Because what they really give you down here is what you want. This right here. This list. They tested each of the stock injectors at the flow rate, at the fuel pressure they run at the rail. The fuel pressure that they run at the rail is this right here. And then, so the static flow for this PSI is this right here. And it's quite similar to all the injector sizes. So mine being an 01 right here runs at 49 psi at the rail. Mine did have a blue tip on it, so it is this part number, but good luck trying to find the part number of the old injector on it to make sure you have that. They just basically tell you some color, basically to give you an idea of what to look for on your injector. Blue tip, brown tip, gray, tan, body, what other color it is that you know you have that injector size. And being mine's an 01, so it's 99 to 04. I have the blue tip, runs at 49 psi. It runs at 22.5 pound an hour at the stock setup. So now that you know that, right here I will convert it into 43.5 psi. Why? Because all the injector companies that rebuild them or even make them test them at 43.5 psi, which is equivalent to 3 bar. it just makes it simpler that way when you test all these injectors. So, literally what I did to find the size injectors I needed is I used this information, converted it, which you can see here, and saw that I needed, what was it, like 21.6 it was at for 43.5 psi. And then I went literally to eBay and typed in Jeep 4.0 injector, and it gave me a list. And this is where, see, it's like $45 for a set of 6. And this is where you like the pictures. It also even gives you the number that injector is in the description here, or in the title. This is a Bosch injector. As you can see, it's 280 155 784. Once you know that, you go to one of these sites. This one, let's go all the way to the top, is Motorman. Here we also got Witch Hunter. This was the list that specific injector was in. Here, this is just a converter. This is a convert whatever, what injector you have to what you want to. This is just a converter for cc's per minute to pound an hour, and vice versa. That's all that converter is. This is for if you're building an engine. Don't worry about this. You're not going to need this for this application. This is a nice converter to have to tell you what old pressure it has, what new pressure you're at. So basically you give it 3 options, you get 3 points of data. You can find out your new rate. So like 43.5 psi, the old flow rate was 0.7. The new pressure at 60 psi tells you what that flow rate of that injector is at that psi. Another converter, very helpful. But this is where that number you took from this site, you go in this list, you go down, and we're after 280 155 784 155 784 right here. So at 44.5 psi, we are at 21.3. I believe it was 21.6 for the stock injector at 43.5 psi. That is the closest you're going to get it. So the best way to find out what injector size you need is take the information I've given you here for this. Just go on eBay and search injectors. And then once you find your number on the side of the injector, along with the right connector you have, it's good to put in what year and make sure you know which connector you have so you can use it. And then you go to one of these lists, like this one here. This is just the calculator and converter as well. This is the other one that's a list. This will all be in the description. Here's another list in case you can't give you 2 lists, so you can find whatever injector number you have to look up what its specs are. So once you do that, you find out what that spec of the injector is. You can match it up. Mine is damn close. You're not going to get any better than that. So then there you go. And you go, alright, that's the one I want. Go click buy now or whatever, add to cart. Whatever you have to do. But basically, that's it. That's all you have to do to make sure you get the right size injector. So actually messing around with this, I actually gave it off. As you can see how rotten it is and to where the seals were. I'm still not going to use that for how rotten that is. So you'll see me do a repair to that. I'm not sure which way I'm going to go with that on that. I ordered some parts, but we'll see. But for the most part, the old injectors, as you can see, were already out. I put my new ones in, and the clips on each one on the new fuel rail. Those clips work with those new injectors I got. And to take those clips off is really simple. You just need a screwdriver and just pry it off. When you pry them off, you just go on this side and just pry them to you. Hold on to them when you take them off, or else it's going to go flying and then you can't find it for 3 hours. And then to actually do this swap, if your engine isn't apart like mine, best option to go about doing that is, one, bring the Jeep or whatever Jeep you have into the vehicle, into the garage or wherever you're doing your upgrade at. And over here, come on light, I would say bring it in, leave the vehicle running. I swear this thing has a fuel pump relay. There it is. You can't see that because of the light. Right at the end of my finger, fuel pump relay. With the engine still running, just pull this fuel pump relay and just let it die on its own. What you're doing there is depressurizing the fuel rail, so the engine's still trying to run, and it'll pulse the injectors to basically, I'll put that on later, be no fuel in the fuel rail when you take it off. Now, you're going to have to undo the connectors all up here. You can label them. I didn't label them because realistically this whole harness goes in on one way, and the harness sort of has its memory where it wants to go. So it's you kind of use some common sense to put it back together. But if you are afraid you're going to screw them up, just label them with some masking tape or something like that. You're going to have to take off the throttle cable, the kickdown cable for the transmission, the cruise cable, if I can think of it. The cruise cable that all hook here, and there's a bracket here that goes on. You gotta take that and get that out of the way, the harness out of the way, and then you can just undo all your bolts. If you're reusing your fuel rail, you can just do what I did and undo this one P-clip down here and just sort of mess with the fuel rail right here and pull out the old injectors, and then put them in and use those clips and put it all back together the same way you take it off, basically. And then when you go put everything back together, you have the fuel pump relay back in, turn the key a few times, try and pressurize the system best you can, and then start it up. And when you pressurize the system a few times, make sure you don't have any leaks up here, because the exhaust is right there. It'd be really bad if it leaked fuel on hot exhaust and you got a inferno going. Yeah, that's very possible, so just be careful with that. But for the most part, doing a fuel injector swap is quite easy. Okay, so here's just the conclusion of this video. As you can see, mine's done. Swapping the injectors over is the easy part. The only thing you have to worry about is getting the right size injectors for your engine. Stock, it's not a big deal to really find the right injector you need, because I already gave you all the information. If you have a stroker, it's a little bit different. It's something I might go over in the future. But as you can see, it's done. It runs. Right now the battery's disconnected because of some welding I was doing on the body. This is just a little fuel pressure gauge, just because the new rail I put on here does not have a test port. So this is just handy to have to see if I have fuel pressure without actually disconnecting this. And this is so rotten, probably will never be disconnected again. Parts for this little contraption will be in the description if you want to do the same thing. Like I said, the easy part is just changing these injectors out. Just make sure this is depressurized and you'll be fine, so you don't taste gas or get gas in your eye. All that good stuff. And just to repeat myself, you need the right size injectors to really not have to mess with the programming of this. Is basically the thing you that I want to address. The right size of these means you don't have to mess with this, because if you have a bigger size injector than really needed, this don't know that, so this is going off of whatever was programmed in the factory to run, and it'll run richer or lean depending on if you put a too small injector on it. Now just to let you know, if you do put a bigger size or a smaller size and it's not that big of a change, closed loop, this thing will compensate. It might throw a code, it might not, but in open loop, which is like wide open throttle, it doesn't pay attention to O2 sensors for this old of an ECM. The newer ones I think do. But for the most part, you get the idea. You want to get the right size flow rate for your engine. If it's stock, if it's modified, then you're sort of on your own for the time being. And find out the information for what horsepower rating and all that good stuff. That's a completely separate video, possibly in the future, but this is the end of it. This is what I have. So, there you go. The injector swap. So, just to sign off on this one, I will be doing an update of this Jeep because the front end is together and pretty much done, and I'm working on the back end right now. So for anybody wondering, there will be an update. Mostly it's just going to be about the front end, and then the videos for the rear end will come out. I'm just like, I get to work on this thing when I can, and pretty much making any sort of videos of this thing is directly on the back burner if I'm not too tired or if I just feel like doing it because of all the other things I have going on. Because I'm just basically trying to document what I'm doing so that if anybody else wants to do anything I do, I mean, it's easier to see what other people are doing to get an idea for what you want to do. But that's pretty much it. See you next time.